So how do you actually take down the most powerful company on the entire planet? Well, you might think you do it with lawsuits and regulations, but that's not where this story starts. No, you do it with hardware, with simple, physical objects you can hold in your hand. This is the incredible story of how a few ingenious gadgets, everything from a plastic cup to a little plastic plug, brought the colossal monopoly of AT&T to its knees.
To really get how AT&T fell, you first have to understand its core belief. You could almost call it a theology. The idea, championed by Theodore Vail, was that the whole phone network was one single, gigantic, indivisible machine. You see, the phone in your house wasn't a product you owned. It was just a tiny part of this massive, continent-spanning nervous system. And AT&T, or Ma Bell as everyone called her, was the one and only brand. All right, let's dive into this amazing story of a true hardware insurgency. Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start by exploring Ma Bell's closed kingdom. Then we'll meet the very first hardware insurgents. From there, we'll see how they connected forbidden worlds, watch the monopoly try to fight back, and finally, witness the system break for good, leading to the open network we all take for granted today. You see, for nearly a century, AT&T's power was built on one simple reality. You didn't buy a phone, you leased a service. They owned everything, the giant switching centers, the wires inside your walls, and yes, that heavy black bakelite phone sitting on your nightstand. This complete end-to-end ownership, that was the fortress.
And this rule, this was their main weapon, Tariff 132. It basically made it illegal to connect anything that wasn't made by AT&T to their network. The official reason they gave was, to protect the network from harm, things like electrical spikes or noise. But let's be real. What it really protected was their economic fortress. It was designed to crush any innovation that didn't come directly from their own lab.
So how did the first cracks in this fortress even appear? Well, they came from two totally different places. First, a ridiculously simple little mechanical gadget, and second, a game-changing legal document that would, completely by accident, end up arming the entire electronics industry for the fight to come.
Okay, meet insurgent number one, the Husha phone. It was, and I'm not kidding, just a plastic cup that you snapped onto the mouthpiece of a telephone. That's it. No wires, no magnets, no electricity whatsoever. Its only job was to give people a little privacy in a noisy office by focusing their voice. Seems pretty harmless, right?
Well, AT&T saw this harmless plastic cup as a profound threat to their entire system. Their legal argument against it was just absurd. They actually told the courts that if people wanted privacy, they should just cup their hand over the mouthpiece. It just goes to show you how far they were willing to go to maintain absolute, total control over everything.
But then, in 1956, a court finally ruled against AT&T, and in doing so, it established this powerful new idea that you, the subscriber, have the right to use your phone in ways that are privately beneficial, as long as what you're doing isn't publicly detrimental. In other words, you could add things to your phone as long as you didn't actually harm the network. It was like the first brick had just been pulled from that fortress wall.
And believe it or not, in that exact same year, the insurgency got its secret weapon. An antitrust settlement, the 1956 consent decree, forced AT&T to license out its entire massive portfolio of patents. And this included the single most important invention of the 20th century, which they had created in their own Bell Labs, the transistor. AT&T basically had to give away the recipe for modern electronics to anyone who asked, arming their future competitors like Sony and Texas Instruments.
So the next big battle wasn't just about privacy anymore. This was about connecting entirely separate worlds to the phone system. We're talking about linking the public telephone network with private two-way radio networks, like the ones used on farms or oil rigs. And the little device that fought this battle was called the Carter phone.
Now, the absolute genius of the Carter phone was that it was an acoustic coupler. It never made a direct electrical connection to the phone lines. You just took a regular phone handset and rested it in the Carter phone's cradle. A tiny microphone would listen to the earpiece, and a tiny speaker would talk into the mouthpiece. It was bridging two completely different systems just using sound, which cleverly sidestepped all of AT&T's rules. And in 1968, the FCC sided with the Carter phone. This ruling was monumental. I mean, it was a total game changer. It effectively legalized connecting any non-harmful customer-owned device to the network. And this just opened the floodgates because that exact same acoustic principle was what the very first modems used to let computers talk to each other over phone lines. This decision really did lay the groundwork for the internet. So,
AT&T had now lost the legal right to just ban devices outright, but they weren't about to give up. Their strategy shifted. If they couldn't outlaw the competition, they would just obstruct it with endless bureaucracy and fees. Welcome to the era of malicious compliance.
And this was their new barrier. If you wanted to connect your own device, you now had to rent something called a Protective Connecting Arrangement, or PCA, from them. It was basically a tax on innovation. Want to hook up an answering machine? Fine, but you have to rent this box that injects an annoying beep onto the line every 15 seconds. Want to use a modem? Great, but you need this other bulky box that adds cost and complexity. It was all designed to make using anyone else's products a total pain.
So at this point, the monopoly was definitely weakened, but it was still standing. The final blows, the ones that made its entire structure totally obsolete, came from two more pieces of hardware. One was a complex machine that blurred all the lines, and the other was a tiny, elegant little piece of plastic.
So this is the DataSpeed 40/40 terminal. It was a screen and a keyboard made by an AT&T subsidiary. But here's the thing, unlike a simple terminal, it had memory, it had local editing features, and this created a huge crisis. Was it a communications device, which AT&T was allowed to make, or was it a computer, which that 1956 decree strictly forbade them from getting into? This one machine proved that the old rules just could not handle the digital future.
And that brings us to the ultimate hero of this story, the simple plastic phone jack, the RJ11. And the incredible irony here is that it was invented by Bell Labs themselves. They created it to save their own technicians time and money when they were doing installations. They never, ever imagined it would become the very tool of their own undoing.
Ultimately, when the FCC needed a standard plug so that customers could connect their own devices, they just adopted AT&T's own invention. The RJ11 completely democratized the physical connection to the network. The era of mandatory technician visits and leased equipment was just over. Anybody could go to a store, buy a phone, take it home, and just plug it in. The physical cord of control was finally cut.
So all of these battles, this whole decades-long hardware insurgency that was fought with plastic cups and acoustic couplers and modular jacks, it did way more than just break up a company. It laid the physical and the legal groundwork for the open, innovative, and interconnected world that we all live in today. It's what turned a closed garden into a thriving open marketplace.
And here are those key moments. You can really see the progression, step by step. It starts with that small legal victory for a simple privacy gadget in 1956, then the Carter phone opens the door for modems in 68, then the universal RJ11 plug in 76, all of it leading up to the formal breakup of the Bell system in 1984. You see, the war was pretty much won long before the final treaty was ever signed. So, the Bell system, one of the most powerful closed ecosystems in history, was ultimately brought down by simple hardware that demanded openness and the ability to connect. It really leaves us with a big question to think about for our own time. What are the plastic cups and the modular jacks of today? What are the simple, powerful tools that are challenging the modern walled gardens of our digital world?